Hey guys, what's up? It's Basketball Horror Reviews, and I'm here with the next entry, part 3 of my favorite first-time watches of 2023. This one's covering the watches for the month of March. I can't believe we're already 3 months into the year. It's kind of wigging me out. But anyway, I've only got about 5 movies, I think, for this month. Not too much exciting has been going on in terms of what I've been watching, but I've discovered a few films that I definitely want to shine a spotlight on, I should say. So let's just get right into it. So up first is the 1980 horror film The Unseen, which is a film about a trio of reporters who end up having to stay the night at a home of a proprietor of a museum, of a guy who runs a museum, and they stay the night at his house after he offers them some place to stay, a place to stay in town, and it turns out there's something evil lurking in his basement. Something unseen, perhaps. So The Unseen is actually a pretty cool, pretty good 80s horror flick, in my opinion. Quite the gem, and I think it's best experienced if you go in completely blind. So if that sounded interesting to you, then go check it out. I know it sounds kind of basic, but like it's genuinely kind of a demented little movie, and I really quite like The Unseen. Don't have too much to say about it personally, other than like I think this is one that people should check out. And I don't know if this has like a nice Blu-ray release or anything at this point, but if this doesn't have a nice Blu-ray release or anything, it needs one, because this is a pretty solid little movie. This is like a 3.5 out of 5 for me. Up next is the 1977 film Orca, the Killer Whale, which is a Jaws cash grab, essentially about this fisherman who causes the death of a orca in an attempt to capture one, and the mate of the orca that he kills goes after him. And it's basically Death Wish, but Charles Bronson is an orca, and the story is told from the perspective from the perspective of the person that's responsible for this tragedy. But that being said, I do think they do a good job in like making the characters like still interesting and kind of likable, even if they do some horrible things. And I also quite like how the orca is like super smart and intentionally does things in order to like fuck with this sea captain and get him out to sea. It's kind of like and he knows that he has to, and the captain, he knows that he has to fight this whale. It's kind of like Moby Dick in a way, sort of. Either way, I was completely enthralled by it. I thought it was really good, genuinely gripping and thrilling, and I think it genuinely captures the terror that is a fucking orca, because orcas are fucking scary creatures, in my opinion. And this film perfectly encapsulates that, I think. But yeah, this is another one. This is like a 3.5, maybe even a 4 out of 5. I don't know, but this I really like this one. This one left quite the impression on me. This is probably my favorite Jaws cash grab, up there with Grizzly. Alright, up next is the 1992 film from Shinya Tsukamoto, Tetsuo 2, The Body Hammer. I reviewed Tetsuo the Iron Man on my channel a very long time ago when I was in high school, and I remember what I said about it very specifically. I said it's like an audio-visual experiment gone horribly right. That's what I said about that film, and I do stand by those words. I do think Tetsuo the Iron Man is like one of the most interesting, visually striking, creative, and just unique artistic expressions to come out in film, in the medium of film, I think. But that can also, and that's, but but still, I do think the film is brilliant, and I've always wanted to check out Tetsuo 2 because I've always heard mixed things about Tetsuo 2, but I've always wanted to give it a chance. And the big thing I've always heard from everybody who has seen Tetsuo 2 is that it's Shinya Tsukamoto, like, just watering the film down and taking the first film, removing a lot of the artistic eccentricities of it, watering it down for a mainstream audience. That's like, that's what everybody says about Tetsuo 2 Body Hammer. And I'm here to say that while that is sort of true, the plot is sort of similar, and the visuals are sort of the same, this is still entirely its own 100% unique artistic expression that is still very much doing its own thing while still being in the spirit of Tetsuo the Iron Man. And I've never heard anybody, like, really speak out about how this film is really its own thing and isn't just a rehash or a retread. So I really want to just take this time to say, like, hey, this is actually a really good, striking piece of art, and you should really check it out if you like Tetsuo the Iron Man, if you liked the first one, if you like experimental cinema. This is definitely, I think, one you shouldn't miss. This is like a 4 out of 5 for me. Just to put it out there, I gave Tetsuo the Iron Man a 4.5 out of 5. Up next, we have a documentary, which is the documentary Woodlands, Dark and Dazed Bewitched, a history of folk horror from 2021. This is a 4-hour-long documentary about the history of folk horror, diving into what folk horror means on a thematic level, and how it can be used to tell all kinds of stories from all kinds of backgrounds, and how folk horror isn't just one thing, it's many things. I love folk horror as a genre, and so this documentary seemed right up my alley. I bought the All the Haunts Be Ours box set that has the documentary on it, and I watched the documentary one Sunday afternoon. I cozied up next to my TV and I sat down and I watched it, and I was genuinely enthralled for 4 hours straight as my watch list gained a bunch of new movies, and I gained a bunch of knowledge about folk horror and all the things that it can possibly mean and represent. And this is a really great documentary. It's not like the In Search of Darkness documentaries, which are the recent, really long documentaries. Like, when you think of documentaries that are long as fuck, those documentaries are the ones that come to mind for me. And at least recent memory of recently released long-ass documentaries, those are the ones that come to mind for me, especially since stuff related to horror. So to see a horror documentary that is like, that has this runtime that's actually worth the runtime and actually like really worth checking out and worth seeing, means it's just so amazing, because this is like really, really good, and I was hoping that it would be really, really good. But I was also fearing that it would end up like the In Search of Darkness documentaries, which are just, 4 straight hours of preaching to the choir, repeating the same opinions and statements about these films that have said these same things said about them over and over and over again. Meanwhile, this documentary isn't really about praising specific genres from specific years. This is just about the genre as a whole, although it does definitely start. The first chapter of the film, the first section of the film, is literally about specifically the unholy trinity of folk horror, which is the Wicker Man, the Blood on Satan's Claw, and Witchfinder General, which I would agree those are indeed the big three. But still, yeah, folk horror is really, really cool. And if you like folk horror, you should see this documentary. It's a 4 out of 5 for me. Okay, up next is the 1994 miniseries directed by Mick Garris, The Stand, based on the Stephen King novel. The novel by Stephen King is one of my favorites from him. It's really long, and a little slow, but the character work in it is some of the best character work I've ever seen in any novel ever. Like, there are like 50 different main characters in this book, and you have to follow all of them, and it's hard to keep track of. But that's the thing that's kind of great about The Stand. And to be fair, it's not actually like 50, but it's still a good amount of characters. I think it's about like 15 characters that you have to keep track of. Anyway, The Stand is about a plague that wipes out pretty much all of mankind and leaves behind a bunch of people in the wasteland, and they are drawn to either to Las Vegas or to Boulder, Colorado, where they join opposing sides of these two great armies, these two great forces, one representing good, the other representing evil, and it's basically about a holy war kind of being held between these two settlements, sort of. It's complicated. The Stand has a lot going on in it, and it's definitely something that can't be made into a movie because there's so much of it. There's too much of it. Which is why it works best as a miniseries, and I think it works great, really. I think it works really well as a miniseries here versus the 2019 miniseries they did, which was really bad. Here, yeah, it's a 90s miniseries. It's kind of melodramatic. It's kind of, not great production value-wise, but, like, if you can look past all that, there's still a really great story here and a really great effort to adapt King's work into, a television format. And for that, I applaud it, and I think it's really good. I personally like the cast. I think the cast is all I think everybody's pretty well cast. I do think they do the antagonist a disservice by kind of watering him down to just being the devil, because the antagonist of The Stand, and who is thereby the antagonist in the Dark Tower novels, isn't the devil. He's something much more powerful than that, actually, if you can believe it. But that's me getting into talking about fucking Stephen King's dark fantasy literature, and don't get me started on that bullshit. Anyway, that's all I've got for this favorite first-time watches update. Let's hope that April will be a month where things get shaken up and I find some really, really interesting wild shit. This month wasn't super interesting, but I do have a few titles that I really wanted to talk about and really wanted to say some stuff about, so I got to do that, and that's great. But anyway, guys, that's it for now. This is Biscuit Boo Horror Reviews, signing off. Peace.